It's that time of year for standardized testing for many people. Does your state require it? Have you done it? Did you do it earlier in the year? Today I'm going to share just a little about our experience of standardized testing this year. On Thursday, I will have a more in-depth video that talks about, it goes more into the video, or not into the video, more into the CAT test. Kind of a spotlight. I'll talk about different parts of it and more details. So if you are interested in learning more about that, be sure to hit subscribe, stay tuned. I'll have it up on Thursday. I will also have it linked if you're watching this later. I'll have it linked down there and pop up in the card. So anyway, testing. I don't like to do standardized testing for a variety of reasons. Mainly because my kids are so asynchronous in so many different ways, and our course of study is not lined up with, for the most part, not lined up with public schools, because we have the flexibility, not because I think theirs is bad or mine is better, but we just have that flexibility. So approaching standardized testing is something that I hate to do, or doing standardized testing is something I hate to do. But we're in North Carolina. By law, we have to do it. We do not have to submit our records, but we do have to take them and have them on hand in case we're audited. So I was going to do it in the fall, and then life happened and we didn't do it. And I really had to talk myself into doing it at all. Honestly, I did not want to do it for the reasons I already said. I just didn't want to do it. But spur of the moment last week, I decided that we would go ahead and do it right then. I had planned to do the PASS test from Hewitt Homeschooling, which is specifically designed for homeschoolers, so it allows for that asynchronous learning. Asynchronous word? I don't know. The learning that doesn't happen according to typical course of study in public school, and also for students having varying levels of ability depending on the subject. So if you have the time and you want to do a paper test, I think the PASS test is definitely one to take a look at. But I didn't want to go through all of that. I don't know. I did, but I was also like, I'm ready. Let's do it now before I talk myself out of it again. So I hopped online and confirmed that the CAT test would meet North Carolina standards. It does. And I decided to do that one. Kind of 3 reasons. 1, the sections are untimed. I really wanted that. Along with that, you can stop a test in the middle of it and there's a save button, so that you don't have to complete a whole section or a whole test at a time. That I thought was important, especially with reading comprehension, for one of my students to be able to take that break. And then for another one of my students, I wanted it specifically for the math section. So untimed and ability to save halfway through a lesson. 2, it was online, so I could have it right there. I didn't have to wait for it to come in the mail or anything, because I knew that I needed to do it then, get it started, or it wasn't going to, it was going to be hard to make myself do it. And then the 3rd reason was that I didn't want one that tested for social studies and science, because I knew that our course of studies of those is so different than a public school. I didn't know what questions would really be asked, and if it would end up matching with what my kids have learned altogether, but also recently enough that it would be fresh in their mind and they'd be able to answer it. So those were the reasons I went with the CAT test. There are other ones. The Iowa is a popular one. Iowa one, you have to have a bachelor's degree to administer it. The Woodcock-Johnson is what I really think I'm going to do next year. You have to have someone who's been trained to administer it, but it's more personalized, and I think it gives better feedback. So next year, I think we will do it. It can be expensive though. In our area, it's $75 a student. So, you know, that's a big factor versus the CAT test, which was 25, I think 20 or 25. But I think it would be really helpful, especially for my older two next year. Anyway, let's get to this year's experience with testing. Okay, so this is the first time I've actually had them graded. We took the standardized test last year, and I didn't look at the grades. I didn't want to know the grades. I didn't even submit them to do that. I figured that if I got audited, I could still submit them, but I didn't want that. We had also done it, I don't know, a few years back in Georgia, I think, and we did the PASS test. Again, I didn't submit the scores. I didn't want to know what the scores were. A couple reasons. One, I didn't think it would tell me anything I didn't know, but I was afraid that what it told me, as far as the weak areas, would hit me hard. Especially because, and this is so ridiculous, but on the testing, like when you get a result, if you get a result of like 50% for the 50th percentile, obviously that just means that you're like right in the middle. You did 50% of people do better, 50% do worse. It's not like it's just average, it's just normal, whatever normal is. But for me, I was really afraid that I would see it and think failure, because in traditional grading, A, B, C, D, E, F, 50% is failing. And I know that it's ridiculous, but I was really afraid that like seeing a score like that, a percentile like that, would hit me hard, would hit me just in a real insecure way. I know, it's crazy, but I knew that about myself, and so I didn't want to set myself up for failure, or for feeling like a failure, and I don't want my kids to get set up for that either. Sorry, one of my children got injured. Anyway, so yeah, so I didn't want to see the scores. So this was the first year that we actually submitted the scores, or that actually looked at the scores. And now they're right outside the door. Pardon the noise. Wait, I'll get to the scores. The process of taking the test. Like I said, you can save and close halfway through. We did that. I took full advantage of when my kids started to act tired, or like they started making mistakes that I knew they shouldn't be making. I had them stop. Why is it that every time I have a short amount of time to get a video made, I have 1,000 interruptions? Story of life. Motherhood, at least. Anyway, I took full advantage of that. I did try that each time, like each day, and we did this over several days. But each day, like there's 3 parts. There's language, which are things like capitalization, grammar, structure. There's math, and there's several parts within math, and then there's reading, and reading was vocabulary and comprehension. I tried that each day we sat down to do it, to at least work on one test from each of those parts so that we had the variety. And I tried to, like they tell you how many questions there are, so I tried to intersperse the ones that like I knew they'd move through quickly with ones that I knew would take longer. So that was that, and like I said, we did it over several days. I don't know, it took us longer than what it should because my husband was injured last week at work, and so that kind of threw life off. But yeah, I would say that we spent maybe 5 or 6 hours total per kid doing it. Maybe, roughly. Some of them went really quickly, like the math concepts. Each of my kids flew through, and it was like Ben took his today, and 25 questions, and it was things like not like figuring out really problems. It was more like there was a perimeter problem, and there was a couple percents. Like they'd give you the percent, and you'd have to tell what it means. There was a lot of money, like they would give you the money in words, and you had to put it in numbers, that kind of thing. One other tip that I did was, as we were going through it, I took screenshots of various questions so that I could use it later as to talk about test taking skills, because that's something that my kids obviously don't really have. We don't do testing. We don't do like, a history test type of thing in the younger grades. So they don't have that, and I wanted them to start learning the skills of things like what can you narrow down. For the reading comprehension, I talked with my daughter about how she was frustrated because she didn't understand a few of the words. But I talked to her, well, you don't have to know necessarily what those words mean. Let me show you. And we went question by question after before we submitted it. Once you submit it, you can't go back and look at the questions, but at least I didn't find a way. But after she completed the questions, but before we hit submit, we went back and I said, look, here's this question. Here's how you can find it or get a good answer or a good guess without understanding the whole thing, because you're not always going to. So we did that with several things so that I could go back and teach those test taking skills. And that way it's easier. I mean, not easier, but next time she has a test, or what my boys do, they have an idea of how to approach questions that they're not sure the answer on. Especially since she'll be in high school next year. Her testing's going to get harder, and then she's going to hit things like SATs and ACTs, those kind of things. Just as I was saying about getting interrupted, life got so interrupted that I didn't get finished with my taping. And I could redo it from the beginning, all in one take. But I'm not. I'm going to admit failure and say, yes, this was taped. The rest of this was taped 2 days later. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So yes, taking screenshots is a great way to, or copying out of questions, whatever you want to do. Great way to be able to practice test taking skills later on. My kids, we did it in spurts with my kids, depending on the kid and the topic. My daughter, the reading, 8th grade reading, obviously was a lot longer, and it was weirdly spaced. It was, I don't know, it was just weirdly spaced, and she had a hard time because of her already language difficulties. She had a hard time reading that well and then doing the questions. So anyway, what I ended up doing for her was I printed off the screen. I took a screenshot and then printed that off. You can't print from the screen itself. I had to screenshot it. Anyway, giving that to her, she was able then to sit down, read it, and take her pencil that she would normally do and all those, and then answer the questions. That was a big help for her. We still broke it down to like one passage at a time. Because it has one passage and then several questions. So that's what we did for that. That's kind of our experience. Results, I was very happy with what they were. They didn't tell me anything that I didn't know as far as like what their weak areas were, and I was pretty pleasantly surprised on the other end of where they scored, how well they did otherwise. So that is kind of our experience with standardized testing this year. I don't know what we'll do next year. In some ways, I'd like to take this one again just so I can see the comparison from one year to the next. On the other hand, I'd like to do something different. The Woodcock Johnson that I mentioned or something. So I don't know. I'll do a little more research next year and not just do it on the spur of the moment. So, standardized testing for this year, that is that. Like I said, I'm going to do a spotlight one on Thursday where I go more into more into specifically the CAT test and what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, how the online format is set up, that sort of thing. So down below, I'd love to know how standardized testing went, if you do it. If you don't, if your state doesn't require it, or you do the alternative, like I know Virginia, I think you can do the portfolio. I'd love to know what you do instead, or if you do nothing. Leave me a comment, and thanks for watching.